Ray Bork, Rob Blake is the player that they would like to pluck from Avs yesteryear and put into this team to give them a little bit more snarl physicality on the D side. I like that pick. I don't know if it's the most impactful one you can make to a team right now.
I like all the Peter
Forsberg's good, man.
Forsberg's, yeah, and the Patrick Waz.
Patrick Waugh is good, right? I see a lot. I see a lot of you guys in the text line telling me that Patrick Waugh is the guy, right? Like if you put prime Patrick Waugh in here, 2001 Patrick Waugh, this team could win 4 cups, 5 cups, right? You get arguably the greatest goaltender of all time between the pipes with the best offense in the league. I think that's probably my pick right now. The other obvious ones that we're seeing, Peyton Manning, John Elway, but as we look at the teams currently constituted, what does the most, right? If you put prime Elway or 2013 Peyton Manning on the Broncos right now, what are they?
They're a Super Bowl contender.
Are you sure?
Yep.
Because what were the Colts all those years when Peyton Manning was at his true prime? They were Super Bowl contenders, but who was on that team? Dallas Clark, Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne.
Yeah, they had ballers on the squad. There's no doubt.
Edgerrin James, Dwight Freeney.
Yeah.
Any of those names on the Broncos right now? The answer is a hard freaking no.
No.
They would make the Broncos way better. They would be a bona fide playoff team. But you're telling me with this roster right now, while Peyton Manning couldn't get over Tom Brady when he was in his heyday with all of those players, and I just rattled off 3 Hall of Famers on those Colts teams, he won a Super Bowl. You're telling me that the Broncos are Super Bowl contenders with Elway or Manning at the helm right now? I don't think so.
Yeah, because each of those quarterbacks also had the ability to lift up whatever receivers were on the team and have them perform above their pay grade. And that was their superpower. And I have no doubt that Peyton Manning or John Elway could do it. Look, for me, the answer is John Elway. Because I watched him do it over and over and over again, Raj. I'm not saying. I mean, I loved those skill position players around him. I mean, they're kind of cultish heroes around here, but you're not talking about all-time greats. And John Elway's ability to lift those offenses up with the Three Amigos and with Sammy Winder and players of that ilk. He would take this crew and make it much, much better.
Joey on Twitch goes, Brady isn't playing anymore. Yeah, you know who is? Patrick Mahomes. And he's in your freaking division, man.
Yeah, but Russell Wilson beat him.
No, God, please, no.
Yeah, Russell Wilson beat him. I
get it. Those two guys were freaks. They were amazing, right? We saw the greatest offensive season in the history of the league from Manning here in 2013 after we thought like he might not be able to grip a football ever again in his life. Elway dragged Broncos teams to Super Bowls in which they were crazy underdogs and obviously got blown out in a couple of them. Could he drag this team? Probably. But you're telling me,
especially this season, Raj, when we saw the, this is really, I'm air quoting this as I'm saying it, the worst edition of the Kansas City Chiefs that we've seen.
And they still won.
Right. But it doesn't mean that you couldn't have picked them off. That's where Elway had his superpower. Like if you gave him a team and you told him, and that team was maybe not the best version of themselves that we'd ever seen, and like the Kansas City Chiefs have won some Super Bowls where we're like, whoa.
Yeah, but like Elway got there. He never got it done. The team wasn't good, just like the team right now is not good. So you're telling me that the greatest impact you could make is getting Elway back to Super Bowls in which he's getting blown out, right? Elway didn't win the Super Bowls until he had McCaffrey and TD on this team and Smith on this team, right? Like he never won the Super Bowls until he had a great team around him. So you're saying if you could pluck one guy, you would take a guy that would be able to yeah, you can get to the Super Bowl, but you're going to get beat by 28 points every single year. Screw that.
By these 49ers?
Give me Patrick Waugh net, and they're guaranteed to win 3 or 4 cups.
Raj,
is there a nugget that you could bring in?
Raj, the issue is with the Broncos is that the 49ers, this edition of the 49ers wouldn't. The edition of the 49ers that beat the tar out of John Elway was Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Roger Craig, John Taylor. That's the version of the 49ers that beat the tar out of him. The Brock Purdy, Brandon Knight, like they're very nice players, but that's a beatable football team. Yeah. John Elway could beat any team in these playoffs and win the Super Bowl, I believe. Now, look, I see a lot of fun stuff on here and a lot of sentimental stuff. You just asked about a Nuggets player. If I was going to take a Nuggets player from the past and plop him on this team, it would be Alex English. Just because, in this era of keep your hands off the offensive player, his scoring would just go through. He was already great. He scored the most points out of any player in the decade of the 80s.
Would he make the Nuggets unbeatable?
Yeah. He would.
So that's my argument here is while Elway certainly, and I know I'm not the guy that grew up watching Elway when I was in my 20s. I was a kid when I got to watch Elway at the latter half of his career, and the vast majority of my case studies on Elway has been going back through NFL films and actually watching what he did in the late 80s and throughout the 90s, right? Like that's what I've had to do. I'm sorry, I was born in 1993. Right. Bummer. I apologize to all these psychopaths on the text line that are like, you never watched him. Like, I'm sorry I wasn't, sorry I'm not a boomer. I understand I understand the greatness of Elway.
Yeah.
But when we're looking at the impact of what that player can do, Elway could bring the Broncos the farthest, but I don't think he could have the greatest amount of success as a player that you would drop into a lineup right now. I think you would have to drop those players into the Avs or into the Nuggets. English is a fantastic option where you could outscore any problem you would have on that court. I think Waugh is another great option. You put that dude in net, this team is winning 3 or 4 cups. Forsberg or Sakic as your second line center, you put those guys in, you fill that hole with arguably the greatest captain of all time and maybe the greatest power forward that's ever played the game, certainly top 3 at his position. I think you would not guarantee as many cups as Waugh, but you'd be looking at 3 or 4.
Let me ask you, Waugh with the defense presently, let's just say it's got its struggles on some nights. If they're struggling in front of Waugh, is he stopping all the pucks anyway?
Yeah.
Okay.
Man, he was good.
Okay.
When he was in his heyday, he was good. And if you put those big old pads that they got to use to wear in the late 90s and early 2000s before the NHL started shrinking goaltending pads.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although those cohos, man, back in the day, those heating pads, those things were heavy.
I love the Waugh suggestion. I really do. I think
there's not a single Rocky that you could put on the team and say like, yeah, they're going to win the NL West.
No,
my favorite text that came in was put Helton on the Nuggets so he can actually win a championship. Hey!
I also saw one go by, and these are coming in fast and furious here, that said, put Chauncey Billups back on CU's basketball team. They could use him. Yes, they could. Yes, they could. I actually love that. I love that.
What about Chauncey Billups on the Nuggets right now? Not as much of an impact as a guy like Alex English, or like maybe like if you could throw Dan Issel at the 4, that'd be nuts.
Yeah, that would be nuts. That would be nuts. Given the way the Nuggets are constructed right now, if you took any of their really great players and just put them on the team, and even if you just said, hey, this player comes off the bench for you and scores all the points, that would be crazy, Raj. I think that this question is very fun because the Nuggets are the one team where you can pull, if you just pluck any of their great players and put them on this team, it makes them almost unbeatable, pretty much unbeatable. And I don't know that any other, given the way that maybe the Avs would be second in that respect. that would be a lot of fun.
Keep them rolling in. If you could pluck one player from Colorado sports history, you just get one player and put him on today's team, who would make the greatest impact? Who would it be? 303-504-0925.